John Kerry, who is the envoy for climate for the Biden regime, while this is going on, folks, the last 24 hours is telling everybody, man, I hope this war doesn't mean that Putin doesn't cooperate on climate going forward. Play it.
Massive emissions consequences to the war, but equally importantly, you're going to lose people's focus. You're going to lose certainly big country attention because they will be diverted, and I think it could have a damaging impact. So, I think hopefully President Putin would realize that in the northern part of his country, they used to live on 66% of a nation that was over frozen land. Now it's thawing, and his infrastructure is at risk, and the people of Russia are at risk. And so I hope President Putin will help us to stay on track with respect to what we need to do for the climate.
Yeah, Clay, maybe Putin's going to call off the dogs of war here because he's worried about the wet tundra up north.
There's
this guy's out of his mind.
So many crazy theories out there. I saw a couple of these. I know you did too. One of the COVID idiots out there said lots of people in Ukraine are crowding together inside. Only 35% of Ukrainians have been vaccinated. Less than 2% have been boosted. So the COVID people, even as Ukraine is being attacked and bombs are falling on the country, are worried. I mean, do we know if the Russians are using vax passports when they're coming in to invade,
Clay,
Buck? Do we know what Dr. Fauci thinks about this?
The Spetsnaz wear balaclavas, which do, in fact, according to Fauci, prevent the droplets from spreading in the air. So.
And then the other one is they're still trying this guy, and I don't even really Sink Uger. I might be mispronouncing his name.
Cenk is how you pronounce his name.
All right.
Cenk.
Cenk. Well, he says the right wing doesn't just love Putin because he's an authoritarian, tyrannical leader. They love him because he's a white authoritarian. Race has become more important than even nationality. They've turned on democracy and now even America in favor of a white warlord. First of all, the white warlord is invading, to my knowledge, other white people in Ukraine, by the way. But this is like, they are so committed to their idea of white supremacy that even when it has completely nothing to do with a story at all, they feel obligated to bring it in. I mean, this really, to me, the Biden presidency is going up in ashes right now, even worse than with Afghanistan, even worse than with inflation and the border and the murder rate. Everything Biden touches turns more into a disaster, Buck.
Yeah, Clay, I think your comparison to Jimmy Carter is unfair to Jimmy Carter.
I think so.
Fair, I think so.
Gas is now gone as a result of this invasion, right over $100 a barrel, soaring. We don't know how much higher it's going to go. Let's listen to President Trump with us at Mar-a-Lago on Tuesday, talking about a lot of the power that Russia has in the larger economic, geopolitical universe is predicated on high oil and gas prices. Listen.
Russia's becoming very rich because the oil price is being driven up so much, and that's their primary source of income, so much that those army tanks you see going back and forth all over the place, that's peanuts compared to the amount of money they're making. $40 a barrel when I was there. $1.86 a gallon for gasoline. And now you have some places where it's over $7, and it's going up a lot higher.
So, Buck, this is a direct impact, direct tax on people who can least afford the tax increase on what it costs to put gas into your vehicle. How much of an issue do you think our own... Basically, we had energy independence declared, and then Biden comes in, and now we don't, and that has given Russia more power than they otherwise did. But this is a big issue for pretty much everybody out there listening to us right now.
You're also seeing you're going to see what sanctions can and cannot do. There's a lot of bluster around, we're going to have the biggest package of sanctions against Russia. Putin's aware of, and the people running the Kremlin, the head of the Russian armed forces, the head of the FSB, that they understand what kind of sanctions are possible. There's certainly going to be efforts from Russian oligarchs who are tied in closely to the government, I would assume, to park cash in safer places overseas, and that should be seized, and people should be made an example of. But in the background of all this, Clay, I think we have to remember Russia is, if they were to stop this war in a day or to stop this war in 3 months, in a year's time, Putin will be sitting down, shaking hands with and posing for photos with world leaders, including European world leaders. And I know that's jarring to hear right now, but they know that at some level. Russia is too big, too entrenched. This is not North Korea. This is not even Iran. Russia is not going to be isolated and punished for long. So at best, you're hoping to turn up the temperature economically against the Russian decision-making so that they will make the war shorter and less brutal, less vicious than it would otherwise be. Now, those are worthy goals. But what is the fallout of that for Americans? Because what we're going to see, if we don't do business with Russia, if Russian oil is no longer part of the market, by the way, they're going to sell it to China, of course. And we are forcing a Russia, or I should say we're witnessing a Russia and Chinese, and to your point about Taiwan, I think this ties into it too. That axis, the Russo-Chinese axis, is growing right now, and the sanctions are going to play a pretty serious role in that. But for people listening to this, everything's about to get more expensive. We already have 7% inflation, all right? And now you have, by the way, Jen Psaki, did you hear this? If you want to know how much they care about the fact that you are dealing with a dollar that is losing value and dealing with costs that are rising everywhere, Jen Psaki wants you to know that, standing up for democracy is like expensive. Play clip 1.
The Russians are saying they think gas prices in Europe are going to double. How high could they get here?
Some of this depends on what President Putin does. So as he's suggesting what the impact will be around the world, it's all based on what his actions are. What the president is focused on and is working on is taking every step we can to communicate with, coordinate with, engage with big global suppliers around the world to minimize the impact on the energy markets.
But even without all this going on, gas in California is almost $5 a gallon. Should people across the country expect to see that kind of a number when they go to gas up their car?
Well, again, I think as you heard the president say last week, standing up for our values is not without cost.
Well, Clay, not without cost, apparently, huh?
Well, not only that, Buck, you're talking about the power that Russia has as it pertains to Europe and the distribution of oil and gas. This also gives the Middle Eastern country, Saudi Arabia in particular, an awful lot of control as well. Because even Jen Psaki is admitting there, I guarantee you the White House is on the phone with Saudi Arabia right now saying, guys, can you please increase your overall production because we're not sure what's going to happen with Russia right now. And meanwhile, while they're begging for them to increase production, Saudi Arabia, the price of oil is skyrocketing. They're making so much money. If they really wanted to, with OPEC and everything else, they could curtail the production of oil even more, and they could drive up. This is not crazy, Buck. They could drive up the cost of oil $125, $130, $150 a barrel. And everybody out there, not just Americans, but everybody around the world is going to be standing there with the gas pump in their hands in disbelief over what it costs to drive to and from work, to drive around your communities, take care of your families. And with inflation already at 7.5%, how much higher could it go as we know the price of gas is going to be going up from here?
Clay,
this is just a mess, man, and it's a big mess for everybody.
People need to know that it's not just about the gas that you put into your car. That's certainly a component of it. That's one that everyone sees, and people know because they're staring at the price, right? You're sitting there, you're watching the dollars come out of your
drive
bank account.
Past, you might be making a choice, Buck, to go somewhere where it's 4 cents cheaper, right? You're looking on both sides of the street.
But what's fascinating and important to keep in mind is that petroleum, is also used, a huge portion of it is also used for products, making stuff. So a lot of the things that you buy are actually directly a product used not just in the transporting of them, but used in the making of them involves petroleum. Therefore, when the price goes up, everything goes up. So everything's about to get a lot more expensive for everyone. And to the comment there that the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, made, standing up for our values not without cost. Clay, you're a very rational guy. where is the line here with our values? What cost? You brought up $150. Okay. Are we keeping the sanctions on Russia at $160, $170 a barrel? I just want to know, at what point do people say, well, then all of a sudden my principles feel a little bit different to me. And then you think about China is an authoritarian dictatorship. So is Saudi Arabia, by the way. Are we supposed to not do business with those countries? I mean, where do these principles stop and start is a worthy discussion right now.
Not only that, I mean, this Biden White House hasn't been able or willing to stand up for a lot of principles that matter to me, like being able to choose whether or not I can get a COVID shot, like being able to choose whether or not my kids can go to school and wear a mask or not, about whether or not my kids could even be in school. There's an awful lot of things now that the Biden White House wants us to sacrifice for when they weren't willing to stand up for basic constitutional rights all over the place during this past year and change of their COVID monstrosity administrative state.